In 2017, we saw the rise of ransomware in the enterprise, massive DDoS attacks, and the exfiltration of data from big corporations. For Tech Republic and ZDNet, I'm Dan Patterson with Dr. Richard Ford. He is the chief scientist at ForcePoint. ForcePoint is a cybersecurity and analytics firm based in Austin, Texas. And the big question on everyone's mind, Dr. Ford, is how will we be screwed in 2018? Of course, we're all looking for euphemisms for the word screwed, but really, with the emergence of all kinds of cyber weapons, artificial intelligence, and other forms of hacking, we really are screwed. So I wonder if you could start with one or two of the real practical or tangible things that we're looking for early 2018.
Yeah, sure. So, 2017 has been a tough year, right? And I think you and I probably have this conversation. We just change the year every year. Blank has been a tough year. This has been a tough year. 2018 is going to be a tougher year. So let's talk about how. So every time I look in my magic 8 ball for cybersecurity, turn it upside down, it says, pretty much, how's 2018 going to be? It's going to continue to rain flaming cats, right? From a cyber perspective, it's going to be tough. But specifically, in what ways? And one of the ones that I think will catch us by surprise a little bit, and it shouldn't, I'd call it a predictable surprise, is we're seeing a lot more of SSL everywhere right now. But when we're kind of ignoring how it's creeping up, and the challenges around SSL introspection are going to get bad, and we're going to start seeing more malware using SSL to hide. So if you're not looking inside traffic at the edge of your network, the bad guys will start taking advantage of that. So SSL everywhere, and the bad guys leveraging that to their advantage, that's going to be a toughie.
So Tech Republic just went entirely SSL, but when you say SSL exploits, are we talking about things like Heartbleed that used some flaws in SSL or something else?
So I think we will see continued SSL vulnerabilities specifically, but we're going to see the bad guys using SSL as a service, if you like. So in other words, they're going to ride the SSL rails and take advantage of the cryptography to hide what they're doing. So when we think about it, you can think about weaknesses in SSL, that's one thing. But there's also, SSL doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is protecting a connection end to end. Well, you and I as good guys can use that, but so can the bad guys. And so we're going to see, the need to think about how you're man-in-the-middling that traffic rising. And by the way, that's relatively computationally expensive. So when your edge box, whatever it is, or when your proxy runs out of ZOTs to be able to do that, what do? It takes computational power to pull those connections apart and inspect them. And so what we'll see is people cutting corners and maybe not looking at the things they should. And that provides this unmonitored space that the bad guys will play in.
So are there ways companies can defend against SSL attacks?
Yeah, so again, I think one of the challenges is it runs into some privacy issues, right? So typical SSL connections that I worry about, I'm talking to my bank. Do I want my company to look inside that? So yes, there are technical things you can do, but when you start pulling apart SSL connections, it's not just a technical decision, it's a people decision too. And so the human side of this starts to get complicated. Companies need to be very clear with their employees about what they're doing with that traffic, how they're protecting their privacy in a world where we want to look inside these monitored connections. And so to me, the challenges here are as much on the human side as they are on the technical. Technically, we know what we want to do. Now, technologies like HSTS or certificate pinning make that introspection all the more difficult from a technological standpoint. But as tech people, we're smart. Give me a tech problem, I can solve it. Give me a human problem, and that's a little bit more difficult.
So the human challenge is one thing that you apply artificial intelligence to. And let's stay on the human vulnerabilities. In terms of exploits and flaws that target people, what are we looking at next year?
So I think, sadly, this is going to be the most unexciting thing I can tell you. It's going to be a lot more of the same. We're going to continually see social media leverage to sort of hack people, because people are very hackable, as a former pen test kind of guy, it was always people that were the weakest link. It was always the person you went after, never the computer. So we'll see, any point of contact in the cyber system becomes a point of vulnerability where I can get at the human, be that Twitter, be that SMS, be that, the traditional email watering hole attacks. We're going to see all the same kind of things. You may see some more whaling, business email compromise, because business email compromise is obviously a very effective way to get at that sort of stuff that the bad guys generally care about, which is the money. And that can be very effective. But I don't see any, tectonic shift there. I think what we'll see is a lot more of the same, and companies need to be smart in how they defend against it.
So, of course, artificial intelligence is on the other side of the coin from the human aspect of cyber vulnerabilities. How can AI help keep companies safe, and how will AI augment hackers?
Yes, we've already seen AI augmenting hackers, right? Hackers are smart, so they do their targeting, or they look for trends that they can jump on using, loose machine learning, right? So we'll see that. In terms of the defensive side, again, we already use, AI might be too fancy a term for it, but we already use significant amounts of machine learning in terms of threat detection, looking for users that are doing things that we don't expect them to be doing, changes in behavior patterns that look interesting. But I want to take a different angle on AI a little bit, because let's talk about something that people are not thinking about. You've got GDPR about to land, right? So we're all counting backwards to that magic date that's coming up. And one of the interesting things is that there are actually implications related to GDPR from AI. If AI is learning something about you by looking at your behavior that perhaps it shouldn't, or that's personal to you, that has implications under GDPR that we haven't necessarily thought through as carefully as we want to. So you can see that, the privacy might actually tangle up with some of the AI discussions that we're having. And again, I don't think that's an area that we've thought through enough. To me, by the way, the whole GDPR thing, it's like this backward counting clock. And yes, we're talking about it, but we're on this runway that's getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and that date's going to be on us before we know it. So with respect to AI, I think that there's a connection between privacy and AI that we haven't fully explored, and that's going to be interesting, and it might cause some unforeseen problems for folks.
Dr. Richard Ford is the chief scientist at cybersecurity analytics firm ForcePoint. Dr. Ford, what are some of the other big trends that we're looking at in terms of cyber defense in 2018?
So, of course, we've seen the rising of Internet of Things, and people talk about IoT a lot. And it's annoying when somebody gets, onto a computer and encrypts your files. It's going to be more annoying when you go out to your electronic car, and there's a QR code on the dashboard saying, please send, point whatever Bitcoins to this link to unlock your car, right? So, disruption of things is where it looks like the attackers will start looking. Because again, there's one thing to look at to disrupt data. Disrupting things is going to be really annoying. And if you think about your home, there's a lot of IoT now sitting in your home. I already annoy my wife on a regular basis by turning off the thermostat remotely from my phone using Nest, right? But it's going to be doubly annoying when that's an attacker who keeps saying, well, unless you send me $20, I'm going to keep turning your AC off in the middle of the summer. You can see, this concept of disruption of things coming. So we've already seen some IoT botnets. IoT is difficult because we're not very good at patching IoT yet. These things often have a long shelf life. And also, IoT is a bit of a land grab in the sense that companies are trying to get into that space as fast as they can. People who are developing, they're often small companies or highly innovative. Those companies are not being rewarded for how secure their systems are. They're being rewarded for the functionality they provide. And so you set up the perfect petri dish, if you like, for some difficult security challenges. And again, if you think it's annoying having your files encrypted, it's going to be more annoying when you can't unlock your car.